Welcome to 6 Steps to a Faster Year-End Close, brought to you by the Controllers Council. My name is Neil Brown, Executive Director of the Controllers Council, and before I introduce our expert panelists, our partner sponsor, let me share some brief housekeeping items. We will have Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please use your GoToWebinar control panel to ask our experts questions. Next, this webinar is CPE eligible. We'll have 4 polling questions. So again, please use your GoToWebinar control panel to answer 3 out of 4 polls or to benchmark your peers. Please allow up to 5 days for CPE certificates. Also regarding CPE, you'll receive a brief survey directly after the webcast, so please complete. And finally, you'll receive a link to this webcast via email in the next 24 hours, so no need for notes or screenshots. Now a word about our partner and sponsor, BILL, NYSE-BILL, is a leading financial operations platform for small and mid-sized businesses, SMBs. BILL's integrated platform helps businesses to more efficiently control payables, receivables, spend, and expense management. Hundreds of thousands of businesses rely on BILL's proprietary member network of millions to pay or get paid faster. Headquartered in San Jose, California, BILL is a trusted partner of leading U.S. financial institutions, accounting firms, and accounting software providers. For more information, visit bill.com. With that, I'm very pleased to introduce our expert panelists. Philip Peck is Vice President, Advisory Services and Finance Transformation Practice at Peloton Consulting Group. Joe Flesher is Webinar Content Marketing Manager for BILL with more than 16 years experience, including CFO.com and Argyle. Gentlemen, welcome. And Joe, please take it away.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and my camera is on. Philip, always great to collaborate with you, and of course, a pleasure to work with Controllers Council. I think we can move on to our next slide, and what we're going to do is look at our agenda. What we're going to cover, as you can see, is when considering 6 steps to a faster year-end close, procedures companies must have in place. In other words, you shouldn't wait until December if your fiscal year ends in December to plan for the year-end close. So what procedures should you have in place? That's what we'll discuss. We'll also focus briefly on how accounts payable and accounts receivable teams in particular can contribute effectively to a smooth close. We'll talk about skills, resources, and tools in addition to procedures companies need to have in place to complete an annual close efficiently as well as accurately, and also what lessons one can take away from every annual close. In other words, how to evaluate your current close process and continually identify opportunities to improve it. So with that in mind, let's launch into our first question for you, Philip, and I've already outlined what we're going to cover. So one of the most important steps, the first step to a 6-step process, is putting procedures in place. So with that in mind, Philip, I'd love to hear your perspective on what procedures companies need to have in place even before proceeding with the year-end close. What should they do before December, let's say, if the fiscal year ends in December?
Thank you. And first, I want to say what a tremendous opportunity to be collaborating with you, but also on behalf of Controllers Council. This is such a fantastic topic. And to your salient point, the timing could not be better. So love participating in this, and we'll dive right in here. I think first and foremost, Joe, establishing a clear timeline, what key milestones are, and the detailed schedule of activities for all steps of the process. It sounds like bread and butter. It sounds like, mother and apple pie a bit, but it's so essential as a foundational element of executing successfully on that year-end close. You have to have a structured approach, and you have to have all the mechanisms in place such that something doesn't fall through the cracks. With that in mind, then, I would strongly advocate having a comprehensive communications plan. Provide clarity around team roles, responsibilities, so that all relevant stakeholders know what's happening throughout the process. They get informed of potential delays or things that you may not expect as it's happening, and any changes, say, in procedures or timelines that manifest itself by the nature of what's going on. Another element is really stepping back and saying, do we have our documentation around the close process up to snuff? Is it 100% up to date? And that's inclusive of things like service level agreements. Things do change over time, and it's important that we keep pace and make sure that our documentation accurately reflects everything that's part and parcel to the current process. From a systems, technologies, and tools, make sure they're ready. There may be some updates, say, to subledgers or various other systems you're using. It could be tools, templates. It could be monitoring elements that you have in place, and make sure that they're ready prior to that year-end close. Certainly, things that are pre-close in nature, be it recons, accruals, adjustments, get them done. Don't wait. Make sure that they're all in place prior to that final set of activities for your final year-end close. Something that typically would happen a little bit earlier is the training and knowledge transfer. And this is so essential, especially with newer employees and participants in the process, but also given the nature of our hybrid work environment. It's highly distributed as compared to what it was just a few years ago, so that training and knowledge transfer is critical. Another key one that I think is important, and certainly don't want to raise a red flag or get people concerned, but often there are audits as part of a natural year-end close process, or a downstream activity is to support audit-related activities. Make sure you have the necessary documentation, transparency, and things at your fingertips to support those activities. Another one is a bit of the expect the unexpected, Joe. Things do manifest themselves in ways that we cannot just expect. So be ready for that. Have some risk mitigation plans in place. To the extent you can, have some execution playbooks. If something happens that we don't expect, what do we do? How can we course correct? How can we pivot quickly? And then the last one, kind of a bonus one that I've been thinking a lot about recently, Joe, the concept of a pre-mortem. Before you enter that year-end close cycle, simulate it, like with all the participants, and go, what's likely to happen? What's happened in the past? How do we mitigate potential things that could go sideways and be prepared for it?
Thank you very much, Philip. Before we pose our first polling question, I just want to follow up on 2 points that you've made. One is assume that there is going to be an audit. That's one I just want to give the opportunity to briefly elaborate on. And then also with regard to the concept of a pre-mortem, perhaps related to that as well, is communication. In other words, it's one thing to have a project management tool, let's say, in place, but there has to be communication. And I would think that part of that internal communication would be the expectation not only of an audit, but also thinking pre-mortem. So 2 concepts, just want to give you the opportunity to briefly follow up on.
Yeah, Joe, thank you for the follow-up on that. I've been fascinated in the realm of thinking about actually the combination of the communication side of it, but also the pre-mortem. Because we always say, what's the adage? Those who don't learn from history are deemed to repeat it. You know, the classic, I believe it was General George Santayana in Mexico. But the concept applies. We have to learn from the past, and we're certainly in a continuous learning and improvement mode, but be reflective in a forward-looking way. So that's a bit of the pre-mortem element. The communication, to your point, just like many other things in our work endeavors and our personal lives, transparency, visibility, and constant repetitive drip, drip, drip communication, keeping people on top of whatever's happening, specifically in this crunch time. I think all of us would say as practitioners, that year-end close can be challenging at best. And it's a high strain on everyone. So over communicate, make sure that everyone is on top of things and you have a level playing